Okay, so I've got some bad news. Sometimes firms lose money. They call economics the dismal science for a reason. Let's take a few minutes to look at what happens when a firm loses money. So, quick review. You can get really good at doing economics when you can learn to recognize rectangles. And if you can find the right rectangle, the correct rectangle, you can find anything from there because the rectangle is going to give you the information you need in order to do the math. It's basically applying geometry to economics. The first thing, quick review, perfect competition. We're working with a model where the firms are in perfect competition, meaning they don't have market power, they're a price taker, their marginal revenue and their average revenue and the market price are all the same thing. And the implication to this is that sometimes the firm just has to take whatever the price is, whether they like it or not. So the question becomes, what do we do when the market price is not high enough for us to make a profit? Ignore the typo there on the slide. We've got a firm, the prices drop, they have no control over the price. What do you do when you're in this dire situation and the price has gotten too low? So let's take a look at this next slide. So I've no animations on this. I should have put some animations in to make it easier for you to see what's going on. So what I want you to notice first is the marginal revenue line. That marginal revenue line is below the average total cost. And when the marginal revenue is less than the average total cost, you're going to be losing money. So that red rectangle right there is our profit, and our profit is a negative number, which is why I put it in red. So when you're in the red, you're losing money. So here we have a firm that's losing money because that revenue is going to be below the average total cost curve. So we're using the same concept for profit maximization that we have in the past. We find the point where the marginal revenue hits the marginal cost, use that to get Y star, and that gives us that vertical dashed line there in the middle of the diagram. Follow it up to the average total cost curve and then back to the cost axis, the dollars axis, and we see what our average total costs are. And we're in this kind of nasty situation where the average total cost is more than the average revenue, and that's just kind of bad news. So just to summarize that, when average total cost is greater than average revenue, it's a bad thing. No one's happy about that. What's the logical thing to do when the firm is losing money in the short run? I say in the short run because I want you to understand that this is only a short run problem that we're looking at here. We wouldn't see firms worrying about negative profits in the long run, because if profits were negative in the long run, the firm would just shut right down. We wouldn't be doing this analysis here. Here's what we do in the short run. We stop and we look at our fixed cost. Why the fixed cost? Well, the fixed cost is how much money you have to spend if you don't do anything at all. That's right. In the short run, it costs money to do nothing. So if you were to just lock the door and walk away from your business, you just don't get to step out of the lease for the business. You don't get to just forget about the loan for the business. You've got to pay the interest. You've got to eat the depreciation on your equipment. You have fixed costs that you have to pay even when you make nothing. So what you want to do is find a rectangle that represents the fixed cost. In this case, it's going to be the height of that rectangle is going to be the average total cost minus the average variable cost. Remember, our fixed costs are always sandwiched in between the total cost and the variable cost. And then the base is going to be our output, Y. Y star in this case, where we're going to be profit maximizing, or in other words, loss minimizing. So let's find that on our diagram, and it's this big yellow rectangle here. Wow, that sure is a hard color to look at, isn't it? So the height of that rectangle is everything from the ATC down to the AVC, as I've labeled on the left-hand side of the graph, and out all the way to Y star, which is the profit maximizing output. And so we got this big yellow rectangle, and what I want you to do is I want you to rewind the video a second, and I want you to pop back a couple of slides and look at the red rectangle from before and look at this yellow rectangle here. And what I hope that you will notice is the yellow rectangle is bigger than the red rectangle. It's the exact same diagram, right? The rectangles are kind of superimposed on each other. The way to think about this, our business is losing money, yes, but they're not losing as much money as they would lose if they shut down, because their loss is less than their fixed cost. So let's see that in words to see if it makes more sense to you. The yellow was the fixed cost. That's the loss if we shut down. The red was our negative profit. That's the loss if we stay open. And in this case, the fixed costs are larger than the negative profit, the loss. And you can rewind back and forth and kind of see that. So the idea is basically simple. We're going to take a look at our fixed cost. We're going to compare it to our operating loss, and we're going to ask the question, which is worse? Is it worse to get up in the morning, go to work running our business, and lose money, or stay home in bed crying because we're losing money and lose even more money? That sounds like a pretty simple deal to me. Get up, go to work, try to make less of a hole in your business, right? This is going to happen. We're going to have this situation where we work even though we lose money anytime the price falls below the lowest point on the average total cost curve. I will say that again for emphasis. When that market price dips down below the lowest point on the average total cost curve, the firm is going to be losing money, but they're still going to stay open unless the price drops even further. So if the fixed cost is less than our operating loss, we shut down, and this is going to happen anytime the price is below the lowest point on the average variable cost curve. So what you want to do is look at that fixed cost, and if we ever get to a situation where our market price is below our lowest curve, the average variable cost curve, when that happens, the fixed costs are going to be less than your operating losses. And if your fixed costs are less than your operating losses, you have two choices. You stay home in bed and don't do any work and lose money, or you get up and you go to work and lose even more money. Right? So you're going to work real hard and lose a bunch of money. More money than you would have lost by doing nothing. That doesn't make any sense. So when the price gets low enough, when it drops below that average variable cost curve, that's when we pull the plug. That's when we say enough is enough, let's get out of this game. But if the price is between the AVC and the ATC, we keep fighting, because sometimes it makes sense to keep fighting even when we're losing. Let me show you another diagram here. Here I'm going to just point it out to you just as straightforward as I possibly can. I'm going to take our diagram, I'm going to break it into these zones. Everything above the break-even line, you're going to be making money, and right at the break-even line, or the break-even point at the bottom of the average total cost curve, you're going to be breaking even there. Above that you make money, below that you lose money. And the other point of interest here is the shutdown point, the low point on the AVC curve. Anytime you're below the AVC curve, you just pull the plug on the whole thing. Lock the door, walk away, it's not worth the trouble. Anytime the price is above that shutdown though, it's worth it. It's worth it to stay in the game and keep fighting. Maybe in a couple of weeks the price will go back up. Maybe things will turn around. Now remember, this is a short run phenomenon. You wouldn't operate below total cost in the long run, and of course in the long run there are no fixed costs, and so there's just one curve on this diagram in the long run, just an average total cost curve. So in the short run, you will keep operating even though you lose money if you're between these 2 points, the break even and the shutdown. Let's see that again. So the top zone is the place where you hope to be at. You have no control because you're a price taker. That's where you're going to operate and you're going to make money. That middle zone, you don't want to be there, but you have no control over it. And if you find yourself there, the best thing to do is to just keep fighting. This is the don't give up part of operating the business. You're going to operate, you're going to lose money, but you're better off trying. And then at the very bottom, this is where you give up and go home. Anytime the price gets below that shutdown point, the low point on AVC, you just pull the plug and you do nothing. You just shut down. And that's important because if you think about how much firms are going to produce or supply when the price drops below the shutdown point, well, the answer is nothing. And that's a really big part of our big picture question of where is our supply curve at. All right, why does it matter? In the short run, we found the lowest point on our supply curve. Below the low point on AVC, firms will shut down. They're going to produce nothing. The quantity supplied is zero. And hopefully we'll have some opportunities in the future to kind of drive home that point and understand what that means. I'm not sure if I'm going to pop a quiz into this video or not. I've put some PDF files in D2L showing the shutdown case and showing the operated at a loss case. Those are there for you to kind of compare and take notes and kind of study and meditate on a little bit to see if you understand how this works. Thank you very much for hanging in to the end of the video. I see it's running about 10 minutes long, so I better go ahead and shut it off. Thank you very much. Have a great day.